I was reborn on the day of the fire. Watching the billowing black smoke, I forced myself to stay calm. My son William Lee was inside the fire, but this time I had no intention of saving him. In my previous life, driven by motherly love, I rushed into the raging fire, successfully rescuing him, but I was struck by a falling wooden plank, leaving me permanently disabled and bedridden for the rest of my life. I thought that even if my son wouldn't be grateful, he would at least take good care of me. But he didn't. He brought his manipulative girlfriend, Emma Lou, to my bedside and shamelessly flaunted their affection in front of me. I still vividly remember that day. Emma Lou shyly pushed against his chest, "William Lee, your mom is right here." How embarrassing. William Lee glanced at me with disgust and sneered, "How can this cripple be my mother? She just sits here every day, wasting my money." He might have forgotten why I became a cripple. "In that case, just ignore her and take all her money," Emma Lou teased. William Lee suddenly understood, giving Emma Lou a kiss, "Baby, you're so smart." They took my bank card, which contained all my life savings meant for my medical treatment. Furious, I pointed at them and cursed, "You wretched couple will get your comeuppance." William Lee turned back, stomped on my chest several times, grinding his foot, and spat on me. Disgusting thing. With no money, the hospital naturally stopped caring for me, and I starved to death in my hospital bed. Thinking of this, I clenched my fists tightly. Unbelievable, the child I carried for 10 months turned out to be an ungrateful wretch, a murderer plotting against his own mother. This time, I will live well and make them pay the price. The fire grew bigger, and more people gathered around. I pretended to be a passerby, shouting "fire," while preparing to quickly move away. The fire brigade would arrive soon, but in my previous life, my deep love for William Lee drove me to rush in and save him, leaving him unscathed. This time, he wouldn't be so lucky. Let him experience the choking smoke inside. But I still called the police quickly, as there were innocent people inside. Just as I was about to leave, William Lee spotted me. He desperately reached out his hand, his face twisted in pain, and I clearly saw his lips mouthing, "Save me." I sneered and turned away without hesitation. Why should I save him? This time, I will act as if I don't have a son. William Lee fell into a deep coma and was hospitalized. He ended up taking more than a month off. So be it. After all, it's his college entrance exams, not mine. The grandmother, who was usually nowhere to be found, made a huge scene at the hospital. As soon as she saw me, she lunged at me, aiming to slap my face. "You wretched woman. I heard everything from Xiao Wei. You're a heartless woman who left him to die. How do you deserve to be his mother?" I smirked. "I think he's the one unworthy of being my son. As for leaving him to die, the grandmother also played her part in my last life. I was bedridden and had no one to take care of me, so I asked her to come and look after me for a while. She just waved me off, pinched her nose, and shouted, 'Why should I take care of her? I'm already so old, and you still want me to work? Do you have any conscience?' I fell silent, unable to say a word. These so-called family members were less caring than the nurse who tended to me every day. I quickly dodged to the side, feigning innocence. "Mom, I didn't know William Lee was in the fire. Do you have any evidence?" The grandmother began to throw a tantrum. My eldest grandson's word is evidence. Seeing the comatose William Lee, she started to cry, blaming the doctors. "My precious grandson, it's all because of you useless doctors. You can't even cure my precious grandson. I'll definitely hold you accountable." I looked at her coldly. Her behavior was actually delaying William Lee's treatment. I would have liked her to continue, but this was a hospital, and public order couldn't be disturbed. The doctors all looked at me, hinting that I should deal with this troublemaker. I rubbed my temples and threatened sternly, "If you continue to cause trouble in the hospital, I'll send you back to the countryside." I had long been fed up with her. Not long after Daniel Lee and I got married, she used the excuse of her old age to move in with us. Despite my repeated hints, she shamelessly refused to leave. Upon hearing this, the grandmother immediately became unwilling and started lamenting, "Oh, what did I do to deserve this? My daughter-in-law doesn't want me anymore and wants to drive me away. What's the point of living? Like to act, do you? I took out my phone and pointed the camera at her face. Keep it up, and I'll post this video online. You'll become a sensation in the neighborhood. How great is that? The grandmother was obsessed with her reputation and immediately fell silent. I sneered. That wasn't enough. Without telling anyone, I simply and decisively sent her back to the countryside. When William Lee woke up, he made a fuss, yelling about why I sent the grandmother away. I responded that if he wanted to accompany her, I could send him back to the countryside too. William Lee shut up quickly. William Lee had been bedridden for over a month, and he finally decided to return to his studies. I walked past him carrying a fruit platter. Suddenly, William Lee went berserk, tearing up his homework and shouting at me, "I've told you, I'm not cut out for studying. Why do you keep forcing me? Why do you always meddle in my life? You insist I drink milk in the morning and eat plenty of fruit to get vitamins. What's the point of living such a regimented life?" I paused, surprised, with a strawberry halfway to my mouth. "Who said I prepared these for you? In my past life, I woke up early and stayed up late to make nutritious breakfasts for him. Sometimes I was so busy I didn't even have time for my own breakfast and often suffered from stomach pains. To ease his stress for the college entrance exam, I even prepared elaborate fruit platters for him. I never expected he saw all this as a constraint. But this time around, I didn't care about him at all. The milk was for me to drink, and the vitamins were for me to take. As for studying, that was his business. In the past life, under my supervision, he did get into a decent university. I let out a cold laugh. This time, I doubt he'll even get into college. I lightly said to him, "From today on, I won't care about your studying anymore. Knowledge is yours to gain. If you resent me meddling in your life, then as you wish, I'll let it go. Whether you study or not is up to you." William Lee was visibly stunned by my words, then looked at me suspiciously. "Are you serious this time? You won't tie me up like last time, will you? You embarrassed me so much." Before he could finish, I interrupted him. "I won't just let you decide your studies. Whatever you want to do in the future, I won't interfere. You'll have all the freedom you want." Previously, I had signed him up for tutoring classes, but he secretly met his girlfriend instead, causing the teacher to search for him everywhere. It ended with the police getting involved, and I dragged him back from a karaoke bar by his ear. I added, "You don't need to attend the tutoring classes anymore, to save money." William Lee's academic foundation was weak. Only because I signed him up for tutoring and he studied late into the night did his grades gradually improve. William Lee cheered, whistling happily, and messaged his buddies on WeChat, "Guys, it's game time." I watched him coldly. "Laugh while you can, it won't last long." Without my supervision, William Lee started drinking, gambling, and playing online games. Anything bad, he did it all. He even openly brought his girlfriend home, acting like I was dead. But they didn't know, I had cameras installed throughout the house. Emma Lou looked around the luxurious house, her eyes filled with undisguised envy. "Avi, your house is so beautiful. Will this be our marital home when I marry you? Will your mom give you this house?" William Lee, proud as a peacock, replied, "Of course, I'm my mom's only son. Who else would she give it to?" Anger flared up inside me. In my past life, I had indeed left this house to William Lee so he could marry and settle down without worries. But after I became disabled, he had no hesitation in kicking me out. He coldly said, "This house is mine. You have no right to live here." This time, I wouldn't even let him step through the door. William Lee showed Emma Lou around the house, stopping at my bedroom door. He hesitated, "This is my mom's room. We shouldn't go in." Unexpectedly, Emma Lou got even more excited and pushed the door open. "Wow, so many beautiful bags." Emma Lou acted like the lady of the house, draping all my designer bags over herself. She turned to William Lee expectantly, "Avi, this bag is so pretty. Can you give it to me?" William Lee's face stiffened for a moment, but to save face, he magnanimously waved his hand. Take it. My mom has plenty of these. She won't mind. Bastard, who said I wouldn't mind? Watching them through the cameras, I stared hard at the intruders in my bedroom and immediately took out my phone to call the police. Little did I know, worse was yet to come. Emma Lou hugged Li Wei tightly, tears welling up in her eyes. Thank you, darling, I like you the most. In my past life, the type of green tea behavior Emma Lou exhibited was what I hated the most. You could even say that she played a part in the fallout between my son and me. When William Lee brought her home for the first time, she immediately took a liking to the jade bracelet on my wrist. She said sweetly, "Auntie, your bracelet is so beautiful. I've never worn a bracelet this nice. Could I try it on?" Since it was my son's first time bringing home a girlfriend, I didn't want to dampen the mood, so I agreed. Emma Lou accepted the bracelet joyfully, but the next second she accidentally dropped it, breaking it. She immediately started crying, looking pitiful, as if I had hit her. "Auntie, I didn't mean to. It's just a bracelet, you won't be mad at me, right?" I gave her a forced smile, and she quickly hid behind William Lee, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. From that moment, I knew she was trouble, and subsequent events only confirmed my suspicions. William Lee looked at me displeased. "You shouldn't scare Momo on her first visit." I had worn that bracelet for over 10 years, it was more precious than both of them combined. Of course, I wasn't mad. I held a grudge, one that lasted until now. Thinking about this, I turned my gaze back to the camera, not wanting to miss any drama. William Lee, with the beauty in his arms, couldn't control himself and immediately started getting intimate with Emma Lou in my bedroom. I quickly saved the video clip, they handed me the evidence themselves. Soon, the police arrived and broke down the door. William Lee hadn't even pulled up his pants. The sudden interruption left him without any desire to continue, and Emma Lou clung to the blanket, screaming. Annoyed by the interruption, William Lee angrily demanded, "Who let you into my house?" I stepped in with a cold smile. "Of course, I did." William Lee was stunned. "How can you let strangers into the house?" I found it amusing and pointed at Emma Lou. "I am the owner of this house. Without my consent, how could you let a stranger in? She's my girlfriend, not a stranger." I stared at him coldly. "Oh? She's your girlfriend? What does that have to do with me?" "She's not my girlfriend." I turned to the police officers, kindly saying, "Officers, this woman entered my bedroom and stole my bag. Could you please handle this?" The police officers, adhering to protocol, politely asked Emma Lou, "Ms. Lou, please come with us." Emma Lou, looking pitiful, hid behind William Lee and said aggrievedly, "Baby, I'm scared." William Lee gritted his teeth and finally bowed to me. "Mom, please, don't do this. Momo is my girlfriend." I smiled and kindly reminded him, "And I'm still your mother." Seeing that I wouldn't relent, William Lee tried to threaten me. "Jade Sue, if Momo gets hurt today, I'll sever our mother-son relationship." I laughed even more joyfully and clapped my hands. "All right, I've been waiting for this day. Go get your father. I want a divorce." In the courtroom, I coldly watched my so-called husband, Daniel Lee. There was a time we were in love, but during my pregnancy, he succumbed to loneliness and had an affair. While I was pregnant with William Lee, I went to the hospital and managed postpartum recovery all by myself. He was like a dead man, completely absent from my life. If that was the case, what use did I have for him? Back then, I had evidence of his infidelity, but for the sake of William Lee, I chose to endure it because I didn't want him to grow up without a father. However, continuous tolerance only invited more unreasonable behavior from him. In William Lee's eyes, I was the bad mom, and Daniel Lee was the good dad. When he was young, he would say with a look of defiance, "Mom, you're no good at all. Dad doesn't force me to study and buys me new toys." Of course, since he rarely saw you, he would definitely be patient and spoil you. When William Lee was sick, he never cared. I was at home, holding my feverish child and crying, while he was in a bar cuddling with other women. I shook my head, pushing those memories away. Fortunately, they would soon have nothing to do with me. William Lee excitedly said, "Dad, I want to go with you." Daniel Lee frowned and finally realized in the courtroom that I wasn't joking. "Jade Sue, I neglected you. Can we not get divorced? You don't want our child to have a broken family, do you?" William Lee was stunned. "Dad, I don't want to live with this woman." I opened my mouth and briefly expressed my grievances. "All these years, I've been raising the child alone. You've been like a corpse. Now, I don't want this son anymore, and I don't want you either. Besides, divorce isn't up to you. If you don't want your videos with your lover to be leaked online, I suggest you listen to me. My demands are simple: you leave with nothing." As for William Lee, I turned to look at William Lee's face, worried that I would fight with Daniel Lee for his custody, and finally said, "I voluntarily give up custody of William Lee." William Lee beamed with joy, his face flushed with excitement. Having scored a big house for free, I was also beaming with joy. My life was gradually getting back on track. I was securing major clients, closing deals, and my career was thriving. It proved that I could live a fulfilling life on my own. Then, a phone call briefly disrupted my peaceful existence. "Hello, is this William Lee's mother? He got into a fight at school. We can't reach his father, so I had no choice but to contact you to resolve the matter." I agreed. After all, the teacher didn't know I no longer considered him my son. But I still had to go to the school. How else could I witness his downfall? I dressed impeccably, creating a stark contrast with William Lee's tattered appearance. When he lived with me, I personally ironed his clothes. But his father would never bother with such details. He only treated William Lee like a plaything. Only William Lee was foolish enough to believe his father truly loved him. When I entered the office, William Lee was being scolded. A boy with a bruised and swollen face was being reprimanded alongside him. The teacher said exasperatedly, "Why did you have to provoke him?" The boy retorted, "William Lee's girlfriend ran off with someone else. It's the truth, and he hit me first." I knew his girlfriend had run off with someone else. That someone was my ex-husband, Daniel Lee. The teacher saw me and said, "Ah, William Lee's mother, you're here." I turned to the teacher with a smile. "Please call me Ms. Sue." I walked towards William Lee in my high heels, looking down at him with amusement. "It seems you've been enjoying yourself." I leaned in and whispered, "How does it feel to have your girlfriend run off with your dad?" William Lee abruptly looked up, his eyes filled with unconcealed hatred, followed by a fleeting flash of humiliation. In front of everyone, he knelt before me and said, "Mom, I was wrong. I won't make you angry again. Please take me home." His unspoken plea was for me to continue providing for him. He knew he was wrong, but it was too late. Onlookers assumed he had angered me, and that's why I was ignoring him, some showing expressions of disapproval. I covered my mouth with a chuckle, ruthlessly tearing away his mask of pretense. "William Lee, don't forget, you're not my son anymore." Everyone was surprised. William Lee trembled slightly, his face pale, seemingly not expecting me to be so unyielding. Finally, I announced to the teacher, "I am no longer his mother. Please don't contact me about any trouble he causes at school in the future." "Thank you." Then, I turned and left without a backward glance. I knew William Lee wouldn't let things go easily. He would definitely pull some tricks, but I didn't expect it to be in the form of cyberbullying. On Weibo's trending topics, there was a large headline, "Son kneels in public, biological mother turns a blind eye." With nothing else to do, I scrolled through a few comments. They say a child with a mother is like a treasure, but this child is an exception. How can a biological mother be so selfish and cold-hearted? If she wasn't going to take care of him, why did she give birth to him? To the commenter above, there's no mother who doesn't love her child. I think she must have her reasons. This single comment defending me was immediately met with overwhelming attacks. I bet you're just as selfish as this mother, otherwise why would you defend her? Exactly, I agree with the comment above. The comment defending me was eventually deleted in embarrassment. William Lee played the victim, completely swaying public opinion to his side and even reaping the benefits of online traffic. I put down my phone, deciding it wouldn't affect me either way, and went to get some beauty sleep. Unbeknownst to me, the situation continued to escalate. The next morning, I went out for some shopping, only to be attacked. The incident started while I was picking out fruit at a stall. Out of nowhere, an older woman grabbed my collar. She screamed in a shrill voice, as if she'd discovered a new continent, "Look who I found. Isn't this the wicked woman who abandoned her own son?" I never imagined that buying fruit could lead to such an encounter with a stranger. The woman shouted even louder, "Everyone come and see what the woman who abandoned her own son looks like." More and more people gathered to watch. Realizing the trouble, I lifted my skirt and prepared to flee. But the woman blocked my way. "You can't leave. I want justice for that poor boy who's as old as my grandson." I looked at her coldly, noting she was about the same age as my mother-in-law, equally annoying and unreasonable. I ignored her and turned to leave, but she quickly tried to slap me. I grabbed her hand forcefully, making her wrist turn red. The woman screamed, "The wicked woman is hitting people. The wicked woman is hitting people." More and more people surrounded me, all wanting justice for William Lee. It was then that I realized how powerful online public opinion had become. Just then, the police arrived. They dispersed the crowd and rescued me from the mob. I breathed a long sigh of relief, thankful they came. But the woman wouldn't let it go. I even suspected she might be a plant by William Lee. She incited the crowd's anger, shouting, "Officers, you must not let this woman go, or we will be heartbroken." The officers had to calmly reassure the crowd, promising to handle the situation properly. So, I was taken to the police station. The officer in charge looked at me sternly, "Ms. Sue, that trending topic has been on Weibo for 3 days and has had a certain social impact. I hope you can cooperate with us to resolve this matter." I nodded repeatedly, keeping my head down. When I got home, I found many packages had arrived. Opening them gave me quite a shock. There were broken eggs and wilted vegetables, even a disgusting mouse head. I took a deep breath. I didn't need to guess who was behind this. Just then, my phone rang. I pressed the answer button. William Lee's smug voice came through the phone, "How about that? Do you see how powerful I am? I advise you to be sensible and take me back home quickly." I sneered and hung up on him without a word. Online harassment, is it? Then I'll fight fire with fire. I copied the video of William Lee sneaking around with his girlfriend at my house, as well as the ugly face he showed when I relinquished custody of him. The most important thing was that divorce certificate. I posted on Weibo, publicly tagging William Lee and attaching the divorce certificate. "I am no longer your mother. I have no legal custody of you and no obligation to support you." Once the video was posted, the internet exploded. "No way, is this really how a son treats his mother? He's so unfilial." To defend his girlfriend, he publicly shames his mother and even brings his girlfriend home to mess around. Honestly, if he were my son, I'd kick him out on the spot. This mother is pitiful. After 10 months of pregnancy, she ended up with an ingrate who leads the charge in cyberbullying her. Public opinion reversed instantly. William Lee panicked, and my phone kept ringing. I didn't need to guess who it was, so I blocked and deleted him in one go. A few days later, when William Lee couldn't reach me, he came directly to my house to block me. Early in the morning, he banged on my door, shouting with feigned sincerity, "Mom, open the door. I want to come home. I'm your son." I ignored him and went back to sleep. Seeing that his antics weren't working, he started performing rituals, splashing black dog blood on my door and drawing red circles on the ground to curse me. Even worse, he sneaked into my house while I was out, only to be caught by me when I returned. William Lee was holding my safe box, trying to sneak out. When I caught him, he awkwardly smiled, "Mom, I just came back to check on the house." Stealing my life-saving money in a past life was bad enough, but daring to take my things again in this life? I laughed, grabbed a broom, and started hitting him. "Who's your mom? Who said this is your home? Put my stuff down." William Lee retreated, finally showing his true colors. He threatened me, "If you keep hitting me, don't blame me for being rude." I glared at him and hit him harder, then calmly called the police. "Hello, officer? There's a thief in my house, and he's threatening me. Can you help?" William Lee was taken to the police station for questioning. I promptly informed Daniel Lee about it. No matter what, William Lee was still his biological son, and he had to bail him out. Am Lee again, this time on Beggar Street. William Lee's face was filthy, and he wore tattered clothes. His right arm hung limp, and the arrogance and smugness in his eyes were gone. As I walked past him, he suddenly looked up. When he saw me, his eyes filled with hope, which instantly vanished. "Mom." His voice carried a hint of a sob. I paused for a moment but did not stop. He hung his head in dejection, looking like a dog that had lost its home. Unlike in his previous life, he didn't even get into college this time and had fallen to begging on the streets. His biological father had abandoned him, too. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a dire state. This was something I had foreseen long ago because I had a hand in it. I thought for a moment and then uploaded the video of Daniel Lee and Emma Lou together to the internet. William Lee's past actions drew a lot of attention, and for the sake of his reputation, Daniel Lee did treat William Lee well for a while. But it was only a flash in the pan. As expected, I received a call from Daniel Lee. Daniel Lee shouted angrily, "Jade Sue, you broke your promise. We agreed that if I left with nothing, you wouldn't release that video." I picked at my ear and said, "What are you to me? Why should I keep my promise to you?" William Lee was no good, but what right did Daniel Lee have to live comfortably? I glanced at my phone and the chat history with the private detective. No one knew that I had orchestrated the connection between Emma Lou and Daniel Lee. Emma Lou was someone who sought power and influence. She had been with William Lee for money, often provoking him to take my money. Given that, it was an easy task. I hired a private detective to personally set up my ex-husband and Emma Lou. Daniel Lee was a player, and Emma Lou was just one of his many lovers. When their affair was exposed, it quickly attracted widespread condemnation from netizens. Never underestimate the power of online shaming. Daniel Lee's company profits plummeted. He had no choice but to dissolve the company, ending up deep in debt. His arch-rival came after him, and without money to pay his debts, Daniel Lee lost his limbs. He ended up begging for a living, just like his son. Emma Lou was abandoned by Daniel Lee too. Now, like a rat in the street, she would be beaten up by strangers whenever she walked outside. "I'll beat you to death, you homewrecker." I opened the window and looked at the clear sky. Everything would be better.